You are now listening to the I Think I Love My Wife podcast. And this is your best friend's best friend, Chidozie Okafor, ready to take you on another journey. Are you with me? Because I'm ready. Let's get it. In this episode, part 2 of our bonus 10-part mini-series, we go deep in several topics like navigating a relationship and dating when your tank is empty, being responsible for someone else's feelings. We try to reconcile the dreaded quote-unquote clock with just letting things flow, and we spend time talking about how sex is sometimes leveraged in a relationship and the consequences of that type of connectivity.
The other piece is around this tank being not full part. This is something that I have discussed with the guy that I'm dating, and it's really, really interesting because, again, I think it's a very mature statement to say, but I'm curious to hear how you sort of, one, recognize that, and two, did something about it.
Yeah. Well, when you say did something about it, what do you mean?
Like, you said that you had gotten to a point where you were like ready to date again and had something to give at, later on.
Gotcha.
But like, how did you go from A to B?
Oh, yeah. So the tank thing is like, I firmly believe, and this is just my personal philosophy in terms of like what makes marriage and even relationship work, right? In general, it's about two people pouring into each other, right? Like unequivocally. And like, if you're pouring into someone without like, any like reverence or like care for like what you're getting poured into you, and hopefully that's happening the same way. Like the goal is like, okay, I've learned this person enough to know what fills their tank, what makes them happy, what fulfills them. And that's a process in itself. And so, if you think about marriage in the more holistic standpoint, if you have learned those things and you're now pouring into someone without a care for what's being poured into yours, and that's happening, then you'll be balanced, right? Like your tank, technically speaking or theoretically speaking, will never like fall because, your tank is being filled as you're pouring out, right? And not to say that it's going to be equal, your tank won't fall a little bit and then be high another point, but generally speaking, like you're going to be in a good place. But when you are pouring that way and someone's not pouring into you, like you're going to be empty because you're not being fulfilled in another way where like you get to a point where you have nothing else to give, right? And then you have to kind of protect yourself in a sense from that. And so I'm a person that naturally doesn't have a problem giving, right? And likes to see the other person happy. And I'm very action oriented in terms of like doing things that make people happy, especially people I care about. And so I may not be as conscious of it being poured back into me, but after a while you recognize that, right? And so I think I was just in a position where it just started, it got bad in a sense where like I just feel like I'm not being poured into it. I'm pouring a lot in it. And so I had to get out of it. And when I was out of it, I just didn't have, like, I didn't care. So like I wasn't in a position to care about someone else's feelings. And so I didn't want to be in a situation where someone needed me or wanted me to care about how they felt or what their reaction would be to something I did. And that's like, that could be a whole separate conversation. But I think that people don't realize that that's a responsibility. Like when you are with someone, whether it's a friendship or like a relationship, and you have that sense of vulnerability or in trust, like it's a responsibility now that you have with that person's feelings because your actions now impact how that person feels. And anything you can do, which is the scary part about it because you have no control once you're that deep with someone, anything they can do, whether unintentionally or intentionally, can impact you in a way that you don't expect it to. And so I don't want that responsibility. I don't want anyone to ever be like, Chidozie did me this kind of way. And I don't want that karma. And so I try to be very responsible with, how I am with people's feelings and that responsibility. And so if I'm not ready for it, I'm just not going to like, I'm gonna let you know, like, yo, this ain't what you want because I ain't gonna care for it the way you. I'm not gonna handle you the way you need to be handled, right? And so I think just over time dating, and just having fun again. And dating can be fun. It doesn't always have to be serious. You just need to be on the same page. I think doing that helped me just get to a place where I was like ready for it again. Like, over like time heals all. I think that's real. And so that just helped me get to a place where I was ready to like care again about how someone felt and deal with that responsibility.
Yeah, I mean I can echo so many of the things that you're saying, especially the part around uh, pouring into your partner so much so that you don't have to worry about yourself. And I actually don't remember where I learned that or picked that up at. But essentially, the idea is like if you're covering me and I'm covering you, then we're covering each other, and there will be less lack or not as much of a gap because both of us are selfless enough to always be trying to like give to the other person. So it really does turn into this circle, this endless circle where you don't have to question the other person about like why aren't you doing this for me, or why aren't I getting this, or the thought of needs and care and concern just really aren't there. But I also think that's pretty hard to achieve in practicality. But that can be. Go
It's
ahead.
hard. No, I say it's hard. Like, but I don't think that's like, I guess there's so many topics that like are like, you're at the cross section of those, right? Or the intersection of those things. I think now my answer when someone says like, what am I looking for? There's a lot of things like superficially that I'm looking for. And I know that personally, I'm probably a little bit more superficial than I need to be, but I recognize like I really want someone at the end of the day, like once all the superficial things match, that like is comfortable. Like I want someone that's gonna have my back covered, even if that means leaving theirs exposed, right? Like that's the level of like trust and like protection that you want with someone, that like push comes to shove, they're gonna have my back covered, even if that means theirs is gonna be exposed. Now, you don't ever want to intentionally put someone in that position, but you want to have that comfort knowing that like I know like without a doubt, if it came to that, that person's gonna have me in that way. But the problem with that is that most people are inherently selfish, like not in like a super negative way, but just inherently selfish. And then you combine that with someone's upbringing, baggage they've had in prior relationships, and it makes them even more guarded and protected to do that. And so I think that whole, ideal state of someone having your back, even if it means that theirs is exposed or continually pouring in your tank, is like the goal. Like that's the journey you're on in marriage to get to that point. And I don't think you figure that out all at once before you get married. But I think you have a level of confidence that like you could get there or it will happen over time. And so that's
Right.
the way that I see it. I don't have the expectation that, hey, before I go buy a ring and start thinking about marriage, that I have to know, like I've seen an example of it. I think there are a lot of little things that can give you indicators how that person operates that will cue you in on, is this something that over time we can have that, or like, no, it's just like not part of that person's operating model.
Yeah. No, that's completely fair. I agree with you. I mean, otherwise you would be asking for complete perfection, which I don't really exist. I really don't think it exists. But okay, yeah, I think that makes sense. I want to circle back to sort of your history because I think I heard this, but I want to make sure that we have a clear idea. And maybe let me know if anything is too touchy. But
I'll figure a way around it.
the whole point of this is to be raw, be candid.
Yeah.
It's also the type of conversation that I have with my dad. But anyway, the question is like, we know that you've been in past relationships, and it sounded like you had gotten to a place where maybe you saw marriage with one of the women you were dating. But really keeping in line with your podcast title, I think I love my wife. I'm curious to know at what points or the points where you have felt you have actually loved a woman, like, oh man, I think I love this woman. Like, what are the feelings that came up in you, or what happened to make you feel that way? Because I think that men feel love, or they fall, and I don't even like this. I don't like the phrase "fall in love" because I think that's like butterflies feeling. But the feeling of like, I think I love this woman because she adds value to my life because XYZ. When have you gotten there? And if the question is not when, then like, what does that feel like for you in relation to how you were raised, and the journey that you've been on, like understanding other men's perspective on marriage and how they got over that, and just how like your personal values around like love and partnership.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, that's a good question, because I think, I don't know that I'm like, I don't want to be, say it, because I think everybody says, like, I don't know that I'm like all other guys, but I think for me, I'm very much like not a feeler, but a feeler as well, right? And so I'm a person that, outside looking in, like someone that sees me always thinks that things are cool, kind of even keel. I don't project a lot of emotions, and I'm very intentional about the feelings and emotions that I project out, right? And so, and I'm very like analytical. Like, things have to make sense for me to like to buy into how I might feel, right? Because something feels a certain way but doesn't make sense to me, that feeling doesn't matter. And so I think one of the relationships I was in, there was just more of like an intense connection that we had, and the highs were high, but the lows were also like very low. And so it's hard to get out of that, because like you're on some highs that you like, I've never been on a high like this before, but then you realize like I should never be on a low like this either. And so it takes time to like get out of that, or to realize like this is not healthy. I think with another relationship, it was just like it was time, right? And I think that person's spirit, that person's like nature worked for where I was at in life. Like, I'm not a person that likes to be told what to do and told, be compelled to do certain things. And so while we were dating and got to know each other, I was dating other people in the beginning, because I encouraged that, and we could talk about that later. But it got to the point where I really enjoyed just being in that person's space, right? Or that person being in my space. And although we were getting to know each other and going on dates, I never felt pressure from her to like hit me with like, what are we doing? Or like, who else are you talking to? Like, there was no like insecurity or, that was projected to me for her to be asking me those kind of questions. She was just kind of really focused on what we were doing. And I think it got to the point where, this is a story. I like to give stories. So what actually happened is, I think I probably felt that way earlier and didn't like recognize it or wanted to see more. But twofold. One, I was in a position where I kind of knew that like I wanted to get married and I wanted something serious with someone. And so I had certain expectations of what I was hoping to see out of someone. And for me, it was unfair to be asking of those things and not be in a relationship, right? So it was like, in my head, I was like, this doesn't make sense. I can't ask this person or have these expectations of someone if I'm not even in a relationship with them. And so that got me starting to think about like, should we take it to the next level? I think what did it for me was like, I was talking to someone else that I met before her, and Instagram, I saw they were at the same event, and so they had the same friend. And so I cared enough about her and her feelings that I didn't want any kind of drama or it to come back that I was talking to like someone or one of her friends, because that wasn't the intent. I didn't know them as friends. And so for me, I cared more about how her feelings were at that moment, or would have been if she found out that I was talking to a girl that she knew. And so that was like, okay, it wasn't worth risking it. So I deaded everything else. And then with me deading everything else is like, and having the mindset that there were things I wanted to see in this person, that I needed to be in a relationship to like be fair in asking of those things or having those expectations. That culmination made me lean in and say, hey, let's like take it to the next level.
Okay, that's interesting. Because it's a little bit circumstantial, but I guess that's
It's
life.
circumstantial in a way, but like I think I would have. I mean, it would have delayed it some weeks or months, right? Like I was already thinking about us in that way and what the future could be. I was already like elevating my expectation for the person and realized that okay, like you're not even officially with this person, but you want this person to do this, or you expect this person to be there for you in this way, and that was not fair to ask it and not give that person, that put them where they should be. I think
Yeah.
the seeing someone else I talked to and her being in a similar event just expedited something that probably would have took a little bit longer to get to.
I feel like that happens with men. Not even like the fact that like something is a trigger and it like is the impetus for moving forward. It's like, oh wait, I didn't expect that. So because I didn't expect that, like I actually do want this. I guess it kind of frames things or puts things into perspective. Um,
That's
and
interesting. Yeah. Now that you
yeah, I say
say it,
that from a place of like I think the society, for lack of like clear examples and putting people on the spot, but like some men just they like end up getting married, and it's like, wait, what? He was just dating so and so like 6 months
we
ago.
don't know that. That's what we see. We don't. You don't know if there was a trigger at month 3.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, who knows? But
Yeah.
from the outside looking in,
Yeah.
it's like, you were just like happy and single or happy and dating
Yeah.
multiple people,
And we
and
don't know
now
how
you're
long
like,
that marriage is going to last either, but not to
that's
wish anything
true.
negative on them. I'm just a firm
Yeah,
believer that like I don't know that I could do something like that in like less than a year. That's my
yeah,
personal belief.
yeah. I agree.
But it's funny you say that because it's like, you know, I think sometimes it takes guys something to make them put things in perspective, right? Like, one of the guys on my podcast said like he put this in terms of getting married. Like the concept of getting married is like such a weird one in the sense of you're in a position where everything is going well overall, right? And then now you're going to put yourself in a situation to change that dynamic, right? And that's like very counterintuitive of like how people operate. It's like it's going well, it's going well. Now I'm gonna like up the ante, and the risk I get like potentially not like just change the whole dynamic of it. And so I
Yeah.
think men are not. I can't say men, but I think a lot of people that I know, guys that I know, are not necessarily thinking about things to rush that, right? And so it's an interesting dynamic because I think I'm dealing with this now as I'm dating is that we just live in this like instant gratification society. And one of the guys that I talked to said you can't microwave a relationship, right? You can't do it. Like and I think we called it like it's a marathon,
Yeah.
especially if you're looking for like marriage. And so imagine this, right? You recognize logically that like for a long, sustainable, healthy relationship, you can't rush it. It takes time to like navigate, to go through things and things like that. But most people that are dating are trying to rush it. Like most people that are on a dating app are like trying to boom, boom, boom. This guy didn't text me at this point. This guy didn't do this. He ain't see like, and it's like he's just trying to get to know you. Like, and I would think take the context out. Most women want a guy that wants to get to know them, but we have these indicators that we're looking for that accelerate the process. And if it doesn't line up to those, or we're not getting those indicators, then we feel like, oh, he's playing or he ain't serious. And it's
Yeah.
tough because there are a lot of guys out there that are playing. So like I get that perspective that like you got are your indicators. But it seems to me in my experience, there's not a lot of wiggle room to like for discernment between that. It's like binary. And that's like the tough part that I struggle with is like I'm low key trying to get to know you and your level of comfort and how we do that. I'm cool following your lead. But like, why are we rushing something that like is supposed to last forever potentially?
Yes, I agree. I'm going to play devil's advocate a little bit
Let's go
from
ahead.
the
Go
woman's
ahead.
point of
Go ahead.
view. Because I mean, I'm speaking from society,
Or you can
mostly
speak from
because
yours too.
what was that?
You can speak from your perspective too.
But I don't believe that I have ever rushed a man into anything. But I know that when you're past 30, women that want children do feel a certain level of pressure. And that's why
Rightfully
I say I'm
so.
going to speak from society, because I do think it's like societal and it's biological, but everybody's biological clock really is different. But society says that, you should have children and before you're 35. That's what society says. So knowing that, like, how do you reconcile someone who has that thought and like just letting things flow? Because it's like a real concern, but we live in the age where everything is happening later. Like, there are more single people at 30 than there were 50 years ago, because 50 years ago, people at 30 were mostly married.
Yeah.
So the reality is that everything is happening later. And even as a woman in her early 30s, like, she actually might feel that she wants to have a family and feel some level of pressure.
Do you
So it's like,
do you feel that
it's
pressure?
not really on you, but she does feel that way. So how do you reconcile that?
Do
You
you
just
feel
date
that
younger
pressure?
women?
I mean, that's always an option, but do you feel that pressure? We're keeping
I
it real here.
do not really feel that pressure.
So you're like at a
I
4.
have felt it. It has like, I have felt it. That's the honest truth, like up
Yeah.
and down. But I also feel that if I really, really wanted to be married, I would be married.
Yeah, but how do you say, like, how is that possible? If I really wanted to be married, would you be married and happy, or would you just be married like you got married?
But I just said married.
Oh, yeah,
That's the
I
thing.
mean,
That's my
yeah.
point.
I mean,
because people are just getting married to get married.
Yeah,
and
in the
have a
same way, if you
family.
really wanted to have a child, you just have a child. You work the rest
That's
of it
true
out.
too.
So
That's true too.
Yeah. So I was gonna try to challenge that you never pressured a guy, but you asked me a question, so I'm gonna leave it alone. I think women don't know when they do it. Like, it's not like oh, I'm about to pressure him to be with me. Like, I don't think they put it in their minds, and that's how it comes out. But your question was around how do I reconcile it? It's tough. Like, I will admit, like, it's hard out here for women, especially black women that want a black man. Like, I get it. And so, like, I don't pull punches when I say, like, yo, I understand as much as I can the struggle that a lot of women have, especially like nowadays, that women are black women especially are more educated, probably are more further along in their careers than the average black man. And so your options are just in a lot of ways diluted. And then the guys are trashed in a lot of ways too. And so the bar is also set low in terms of expectations. So I understand a lot of the frustration that women are going through and then trying to navigate that. The way that I reconcile it or try to reconcile is I encourage women to date more than one person at a time. I think it's hard just because of the way that most women are made up to like invest that time with people and have their mental capacity divided that way. But I'm a firm believer that like women need to like enjoy having options, and like everything don't have to be so serious in the beginning, right? And part of that means that you can't, for the fear of missing out or losing something, can't project something you're not ready for, right? And I think that happens with sex a lot, right? I think a lot of times women know that, sex means a lot to them, or their level of connectivity intensifies once they've had sex, right? And so even though they don't know what the situation is, in fear of, some just want to have sex, so that's that. But in fear of like missing out on the relationship or it not continuing on because that guy really wants to have sex and that might be a deal breaker, has sex.
Yeah.
And for that guy, it's like it was just sex. We are better from a primitive standpoint or whatever, able to block things out, compartmentalize better, generally speaking. And so what happens is that woman has now had sex. She feels a heightened level of connectivity with that person. She's not getting that in return, and then is projecting how she feels to the guy when the guy made the decision he was comfortable with. Because what guys do, if he wants sex and he's not getting it, he leaves.
Yeah.
He's like, I didn't want that, so I'm leaving. Where women, oftentimes, they want that connectivity, and they're like, well, sex is part of that. Seems to be part of the equation for whatever guy she's with. And she knows what that does to her, and then still have sex. And a lot of the drama that comes after that is because she's projecting what she knew she wasn't mentally ready to do. And so I think like women need to like have their boundaries set, because most guys, if he sees enough in you that he likes, is going to navigate that. And especially as he gets older, it's not just about that. And so I think if women are able to like date kind of like more freely within the parameters they want, they'll be able to see more options and I guess not feel like they have all of their marbles in the same basket, so that they can go through more guys in terms of seeing what they're like and see who's going to cater to them in the way they want to be catered to quicker. But I understand the pressure that they feel. Like, I don't know if there's any way around that, or the fact that we're out of time. If you want to hear us continue this conversation, be sure to check me out next Sunday when I drop episode 3 and 4 of this 10-part bonus mini-series. And there we'll spend time talking about boundaries and bets that people make to secure a relationship, the way men and women think and feel differently, the luxury of operating based on how you feel. We'll spend some time going through the differences between being mature, having emotional maturity, and being communicative. Also, try to unpack the differences and the impact that having a father makes on women and in dating. If you like what you hear, like I say every time, please tell a friend. Get your people to subscribe to it. Get your people to listen to it. Subscribe to the I Think I Love My Wife podcast. We're on every major platform. And follow us at Think Love Wife on Instagram. Be sure to tell a friend, leave a review, write a rating. All this stuff really helps, and I appreciate it. But between now and then, I hope the conversation keeps going.